Tibetan monks and the ancient teachings of Tibet. The life of Tibetan monks is a mystery sealed with 7 seals. It is entirely dedicated to the search for truth. It is said that Tibetan monks know practices that allow one to achieve the state of Buddha in a single lifetime. They carry human skulls in their bags to always remember impermanence and the proximity of death. Tibetan monks are resistant to cold, able to walk in thin cotton clothing even in severe frosts, go without food for months, know everything about Tibetan mandalas, and can transfer their consciousness into the bodies of other living beings. Bearers of the secret practices of the 6 Yogas of Naropa, they easily traveled through worlds inaccessible to ordinary mortals. What of this is true, and what is fiction? Perhaps these are just myths often found in various religious movements. Are Tibetan monks truly people who have overcome the limitations of body and mind and are capable of performing miracles? Tibetan monk. The perfection of renunciation. Tibetan monks are known for their detachment from the material world. The work of Shantideva provides a detailed description of the philosophy and practices of Tibetan monks. As the great philosopher writes, sensory pleasures are like honey on the blade of a razor. In their meditative practices, they sequentially pass through all 8 levels of dhyana. Meditation, during which they gradually comprehend the 3 aspects of existence: impermanence, selflessness, and dissatisfaction. In the early levels of dhyana, some mental formations remain. After mastering the 4th level, the meditator directs their attention to the impermanence of all phenomena, and the surrounding world literally begins to disintegrate into atoms in the practitioner's consciousness. At this stage, the state of realizing the absence of everything is achieved. The theoretical understanding of this phenomenon is thoroughly described by the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara in the Heart Sutra. It is the understanding of the illusory and impermanent nature of all things and phenomena that allows Tibetan monks to achieve the perfection of renunciation. The secret of their detachment is simple. They follow the rules not merely because these rules are described in ancient texts, but because they have practically understood the nature of impermanence themselves. This realization destroys all attachments. However, a formal code of conduct for monks still exists. Tibetan teaching. The 6 Yogas of Naropa. The quintessence of Tibetan practices is the set of secret instructions known as the 6 Yogas of Naropa. These are 6 practices, each of which allows one to work on a specific aspect of the personality at the energetic, physical, and spiritual levels. The first of these practices is Tumo. The practitioner performs a voluntary pranayama with breath retention on inhalation and exhalation, accompanied by energetic locks and visualizations, primarily of fire and light, within their body. There are 3 levels of mastery in this practice: lesser wind, medium wind, and great wind. During the practice, the monk visualizes the movement of energy through the channels, thereby purifying them, and also concentrates on images of fire and light, which initiates the process of generating heat in the physical body. The most challenging level to achieve is the final one. 3 breath retentions on inhalation with locks are performed in succession, followed by 3 breath retentions on exhalation with locks, all accompanied by the visualization of a body blazing with fire, and then emptiness. In short, this practice is not for everyone. This rather complex practice combines breathing, voluntary breath retention, visualization, energetic locks, and so on. However, the results can be quite significant. Monks who have mastered the great wind level become completely insensitive to cold. Those who have passed all the stages of initiation in this practice undergo an examination. They must dry 14 wet towels in the cold within 10 minutes using the energy of their body. This is the standard for excellence. Ideally, a monk can even heat a room with the energy of their body as effectively as a stove. And this is only the first of the 6 Yogas of Naropa. Monks also master dream yoga, which allows them, by falling asleep with concentration on a particular image in a specific part of the body. For example, a red lotus at the throat or a white sun between the eyebrows. To travel into the depths of the subconscious, working through their internal problems and limitations. For instance, falling asleep with concentration on the image of a black sun in the pelvic region allows one to confront and overcome their fears in a dream, as it is much easier to face fear in a dream. Monks also master the yoga of the illusory body and, most incredibly, the yoga of consciousness transference, which allows one to transfer their consciousness into the body of another living being. The practice of Bhikkhu Shichi enables one to achieve the level of energetic nourishment. During this practice, a rather simple visualization is performed. The navel opens into a lotus flower, and the practitioner visualizes the process of nourishment through the navel. The visualization itself is quite simple, but the effect of energetic nourishment is achieved through perfect concentration. Tibetan monks attain this through one of the most basic practices, such as concentrating on a point on a wall. The goal of this practice is to learn to concentrate unwaveringly on an object. As for the dietary rules for monks, they must first and foremost adhere to the principle of ahimsa nonviolence. To at least roughly understand the complexity of the meditative practices performed by Tibetan monks, one can refer to texts such as The Comprehensive Wisdom of the Bodhisattva's Deeds and Dharma. Everything described there must be imagined solely through the power of one's imagination. In any case, all these practices grant monks certain siddhis supernatural abilities. For example, the art of enlightenment allows one to achieve bodily resistance to external damage. Tibetan monks were often attacked by organized armies or random bandits in the past. This is why martial arts and various methods of physical training are also popular among them. But the ultimate goal of all practices is, of course, the attainment of Buddhahood. And the highest supernatural ability is compassion for all living beings. Tibetan monks are, first and foremost, practitioners. They practice as long as they live. The secret teachings of Tibet allow one to achieve the state of Buddha in a single lifetime, and life is dedicated solely to this goal. Tibetan philosophy. The world is an illusion. Tibetan philosophy is no different from the classical teachings of Buddhist monks. The foundation of this philosophy is the Buddha's first sermon on the nature of suffering and the way to end it, as well as the instructions given in the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and many other Pranaparamita Sutras. The philosophy of Tibetan Buddhism is succinctly and clearly outlined in the philosophical treatise, The Way of the Bodhisattva, by the monk Shantideva. Legend has it that when he read his text to the monks, his body levitated above the ground, and he entered a state of samadhi. This treatise describes how a monk should perceive the world, how to relate to oneself, to living beings, and to the world. All fears, as well as all boundless sufferings, originate in the mind. Tigers, lions, elephants, bears, snakes, and all kinds of enemies all can be subdued by subduing the mind alone, writes Shantideva. In the final chapters, he provides specific practices of analytical meditation aimed, for example, at destroying the illusory attractiveness of the female body, at understanding cause and effect, and so on. Buddhist monk. The path to Nirvana. What should a Buddhist monk be like? According to the Buddha's first sermon, the goal of the path is Nirvana. However, the Lotus Sutra states that the Buddha's teachings are given only to bodhisattvas, that is, those who, having the opportunity to enter Nirvana, remain in samsara for the benefit of all living beings. There are different schools, each adhering to one or another concept. Therefore, it is difficult to form a unified understanding of the path Buddhist monks follow. One thing is certain. Buddhist monks are detached wanderers who come into this world as if to a school of harsh lessons, to achieve spiritual and moral purity, to free themselves from the bonds of the material world, and if possible, to help others do the same. And the guiding star of every Buddhist monk remains compassion for all living beings, and everything else is a consequence of this.